Well, well, well. Jordan Peele slaps his producer credit on another horror flick, and suddenly everyone's convinced we're getting the next Get Out. Spoiler alert, we're not. Him is what happens when Hollywood takes a genuinely fascinating premise, the toxic cult of American football, and proceeds to fumble it harder than a rookie quarterback in the playoffs. Director Justin Tipping deserves credit for one thing. He understands that football is already horror. The film opens with Cameron Cade, played by Tyreek Withers, watching his hero, Isaiah White, suffer a brutal injury while winning a championship. It's a perfect metaphor wrapped in slow-motion carnage. Glory comes with blood, and someone always pays the price. This opening sequence captures something genuinely unsettling about our relationship with gladiatorial entertainment, where we cheer for destruction while pretending we don't want to see anyone get hurt. The premise kicks into gear when Cam, now a rising prospect himself, gets attacked by some nutjob in a goat costume, because nothing says subtle horror imagery than literal Satan references, and suffers a potentially career-ending brain injury. Enter Isaiah White, played by Marlon Wayans in what might be his best dramatic performance since Requiem for a Dream. Isaiah offers to train Cam at his isolated desert compound, and if that doesn't immediately scream cult leader vibes, you haven't watched enough horror movies. Credit where it's due, Wayans is genuinely terrifying as Isaiah. He brings this charismatic menace that feels authentic. You believe he's both the greatest quarterback of all time and someone who'd sacrifice a rookie's brain for one more season of glory. The film's best moments come from watching Isaiah manipulate Cam through a twisted mentorship that blends football training with psychological torture. There's a practice drill involving a football machine repeatedly hitting players in the head that's simultaneously absurd and horrifying. It's whiplash meets Saw, and for brief moments, it actually works. The cinematography deserves mention here. Tipping shoots football like the violent ballet it actually is, using X-ray footage to show bones cracking and brains rattling inside skulls. It's visceral stuff that makes you genuinely uncomfortable watching these athletes destroy their bodies for our entertainment. The film understands that football is America's most successful blood sport, and when it leans into that thesis, it's genuinely effective. What Him gets right is its exploration of how sports culture creates literal cults of personality. Isaiah's compound isn't just a training facility, it's a shrine to masculine excellence where sacrifice is currency and pain is proof of devotion. The film smartly parallels sports fandom with religious fanaticism, complete with biblical imagery that occasionally works. Cam receives injections of Isaiah's blood sold as energy boosters in a twisted communion ritual that would make Midsommar proud. The movie also nails the predatory nature of sports mentorship. Isaiah isn't training Cam out of altruism, he's grooming his replacement while simultaneously trying to eliminate the threat he represents. It's a perfect metaphor for how the sports industrial complex chews up young talent, and Wayans sells every manipulative moment with unsettling conviction. But here's where Him becomes a case study of wasted potential. The film spends its first two acts building genuine tension and meaningful themes, and then completely shits the bed in the final 30 minutes. What should be a powerful climax about the cost of greatness instead becomes a confused mess of Christian symbolism, clashing with pagan imagery, goat masks, and dialogue that sounds like it was written by someone who just discovered metaphors exist. The biblical references that work subtly throughout the film suddenly become sledgehammer obvious. Goats appear everywhere, hammering home the Satan posing as God theme with all the subtlety of a Mike Bay explosion. The film can't decide if it wants to be a psychological thriller about toxic masculinity, a religious allegory about false idols, or a straight horror movie about cult manipulation. The result is thematic whiplash that undermines everything that came before. While Wayans delivers career-best work, Tyreek Withers struggles to carry the film's emotional weight. He's convincing as a young athlete, but when the psychological horror kicks in, he often feels more confused than genuinely disturbed. The script doesn't help. Cam's character arc from devoted prospect to questioning the entire system feels rushed and underdeveloped. We needed to see his transformation more gradually, but the film is too busy juggling symbolism to properly develop its protagonist. Julia Fox appears as Isaiah's influencer wife, and while she brings her usual chaotic energy, the role feels underwritten. She's clearly meant to represent the commodification of athletic celebrity, but the film never gives her enough to do beyond looking enigmatically damaged. Him wants to desperately say something profound about American masculinity, sports obsession, and the price of greatness. And look, these are worthy targets. Football culture absolutely deserves the horror treatment. But the film gets so caught up in its own cleverness that it forgets to be coherent. The metaphors pile up like injured players on the field. Gladiators, cults, biblical sacrifice, toxic mentorship, brain trauma, false idols. Any one of these could fuel an entire movie, but him tries to tackle them all and fumbles spectacularly. The film also suffers from that particular brand of elevated horror pretension, where every frame is loaded with meaning, but none of it connects to a satisfying whole. It's the cinematic equivalent of a football playbook written in ancient Greek, technically impressive, but utterly useless in practice. Him is a frustrating near miss that highlights everything wrong with modern horror's obsession with being about something. Yes, football culture is ripe for horror treatment. Yes, the toxic masculinity and cult-like devotion deserve examination. But being important doesn't automatically make you effective. And him proves that good intentions can't save muddled execution. The film works best when it trusts its central premise, football as ritualized violence, and worst when it gets distracted by its own intellectual ambitions. Wayans gives it everything he's got, and the cinematography creates genuine unease, but the screenplay needed about 3 more drafts to figure out what story it actually wanted to tell. In the end, him feels like a first draft of a potentially great film. The bones are there, but the execution fumbles at the goal line. It's the kind of movie that'll have film students writing thesis papers about its themes, while general audiences walk out wondering what the hell they just watched. And honestly, that's probably exactly what Jordan Peele's production company was aiming for. Controversy disguised as profundity. Sometimes the most damning thing you can say about a horror movie isn't that it's terrible, but that it had everything it needed to be great and still found a way to lose. Him is that rare disappointment that hurts precisely because you can see the masterpiece hiding beneath all the pretentious bullshit.